In an era marked by globalization and the rapid technological advancements that we've seen, the role of higher education in shaping national development has become very critical, particularly in a context like Africa, where there is great diversity. This timely volume, edited by Prof. Chux, a leading voice in entrepreneurship and socioeconomic development from the University of the Western Cape, delves into the complex and multifaceted concept of academic citizenship within African higher education. Prof. Iwu, whose research spans a wide range of fields, including organizational development, communication, and human resource, brings a wealth of expertise to this exploration, recognizing the scarcity of research specifically on academic citizenship. This book, titled Academic Citizenship in African Higher Education Towards a Socioeconomic Development Agenda, provides the much needed platform for diverse voices and perspectives. He's collaborated with various scholars and through case studies and contributions from educators, researchers, and stakeholders, the book grapples with the core question of academic citizenship. Prof. Iwu, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about this great volume. Firstly, congratulations. It is a much needed and very timely contribution to scholarship.
Thank you, Prof. Nkoala, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So let's begin with you talking about what motivated you to actually undertake this project, specifically focused on the concept of academic citizenship.
Okay, so let's start by, or rather, let me start by saying this. I was motivated to undertake this project because one, I was noticing a lot of fights between academics and their employers, often arising from students complaining about the academic or academic believing or feeling that they were shortchanged. And so I began to think, how are we supposed to behave us as academics? What's supposed to be the right attitude? I mean, one understands there's a concept called organizational citizenship. Then, aren't academics members of an organization? Would they have to be different from regular establishments, corporate companies? And so one of the things I began to do too was to search. Let me look for what's been written about academic citizenship. And it struck me that not much had been done in Africa, as it were. In fact, in South Africa, the only material I found was credited to a Caldwell, a Professor Caldwell at I think the University of Johannesburg of Witwatersrand. Then I began to comb the university's website to get an idea of what's been said about academic citizenship. Surprisingly, in the value propositions in many of these universities, nothing was mentioned about academic citizenship. But in the global north, you'd find they defined what academic citizenship was or is for them and their expectations of those who belong to those communities. And that's why I thought, why not? Why not, you know, write up something about this? I wanted to write up something about this alone, but I didn't think it would have. I just thought it would make more sense to ask people to come together and write, give opinions or submit chapters. So, in deciding this, I put together a proposal. And because at the time I was working on, along with Professor J. Mitra, who was at Essex at the time, in kind of building the Palgrave Encyclopedia of Entrepreneurship. And I liked Palgrave's style. So I approached them and said, this is what I'm thinking. and they approved it. They were happy to 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 produce the book. And so we worked on a call for chapters and assembled, very good chapters. Sadly, not many of them could make it to the book because word, a number of pages, word count. There were very good submissions, but so we ended up with the ones you find in the book. And I'd like anyone to go look at the book, read it, and as I'd say, everything else is now history, and that's the book. I'd really recommend that you go look at it. It contains very interesting views, well-researched views about academic citizenship within the African context and how this citizenship concept in Africa can spur socioeconomic development.
Quite a journey. And I think you've said quite a lot in that response, which we'll unpack. One of them being the need for a clear definition. What is academic citizenship, and what are some of the ideas around it, around what it means that are advanced in the book?
All right. So, what is academic citizenship? I haven't read through all the submissions, and now that the book is out, there are there is a variety of meanings attributed to academic citizenship, and I don't think any of those definitions or meanings attributed to academic citizenship should weigh less in any form. Some would regard it as the attitude or behavior expected of an academic institution and its members within the confines of the university. I guess they would argue that if academic or universities or colleges members behaved in a certain way, and it would carry the university or the college further. Some would argue too that it's a set of rules that guide how members of a community perform their duties and how they interact with the larger society. In other words, academic citizenship should be felt within and outside the university or college. And some of these ideas or concepts are advanced in this book. And so I would encourage that several of these meanings are looked at by anyone who, and I'm not just anyone, I'd really like to see people wanting to look at the book and perhaps give you an opportunity to come up with your own concept or definition of academic citizenship.
And I think from that, I'm picking up that context is very important
I agree with you.
to effectively engaging in academic citizenship. You spoke about teaching that speaks to students,
I'm certainly on your side with that.
research that informs teaching. And in your earlier response, you mentioned how there was such limited research on academic citizenship in Africa. Why do you think that is the case? Why do we have such limited perspectives on our context? And I suppose that is one of the critical gaps the volume speaks to.
I think it's a very important question. Why do we have such limited perspectives on our contexts? Well, I can't directly answer that, but I think putting this book together sort of helps to close the gap because I think it sort of helps to understand what our roles are. I mean, I'm not saying that colleges and universities do not know what they should be doing, but I think, given what I understand now about academic citizenship, it is not surprising that not many people have wrote about it. I, I mean, our universities may not have existed for as long as many established universities in the global north, and they may have gone through all kinds of experiences necessitating them to include what academic citizenship should be in their ethos or value systems. So perhaps now that this book is out, and I think just recently someone else, let me see if I can get the name of the person who delved into it too. A Professor Davids, Nuran Davids, who wrote about academic citizenship, identity, knowledge, and vulnerability, published in the Springer Nature in 2023. So I think there's become a movement has started to understand what academic citizenship is, and how we should be regarded as institutions of higher learning, and how members of this particular community should be behaving.
So presenting it in a volume really allows that interdisciplinarity. So with regards to the contributors, are you able to maybe to highlight some of the key topics in the chapters, the key issues that they tease out about academic citizenship, maybe informed by the different disciplines?
I think it would be difficult for me to single out any chapter. I say so because all the chapters are beautiful, superbly constructed, and offering something something tangible. So it would be difficult for me to highlight any particular one. But having said that, I mean, there are ones that really really excite me, and I refer to, I think it's chapter 2 of the book, where Professor Jose Franz and her colleagues attempt to design a framework, and I'd like to just take a quick look at that. Attempt to design a framework that would help to establish a culture of academic citizenship. And that's a fantastic one. And I'd like people to go look at it. There's also another one where I think Dr. Ilona Ndlovu and her colleagues sort of recommend using coaching as a methodology for bringing about genuine academic citizenship that can transform society. There is also a Dr. Sharon Old. Dr. Sharon Old talks about engaging students through interdisciplinary debate activities. Superb material. So I generally think it would be difficult for me to say this is the best or worst. A key topic that is totally mind blowing. All What I would say is that virtually all the 9 chapters are worth the attention.
How do you think these ideas then can be put into practice within higher education, especially in Africa? Some of the studies that you mentioned survey the landscape, so there are things happening, but many perhaps are not thinking about academic citizenship in the way that you advance in the volume. So, are there practical ways that these can be put into practice within universities?
Okay, so this is how I'd like to react to this. And by the way, thank you for the question. I think it makes all the sense in the world. How do we put all of this in practice within universities? The first thing I'd like to recommend is that we should work a bit more harder, or more collegially with the outside world. We tend to look for partners in industries, in big corporations, and we often tend to kind of not deal with our immediate communities. So we look for funds from established, from big corporations, and we go to these communities to find out what's happening to them so that we can research them. I think in what I'll suggest is that our teaching and research should basically reflect the interest of our immediate communities. And I don't think we're doing that a lot more. This book has kind of opened the for me a new vista of looking at academic citizenship in the sense that now I know that we need to start to do things differently, relate with our communities, and in fact invite them to be part of what we do. It's only during setting up a new program or something that we can get in touch with that, because they're corporate sponsors and so on. But what about doing or setting up programs that reflect the real needs of our communities? We have seen how new technologies have influenced the way things are done. But then again, if we start to train people in new technologies, we should also try as much as possible to ensure that the local communities have access to these new technologies and these programs. So perhaps some practical ways to put this in practice would be to continue and, in fact, better the way we relate with our, our external communities so that they cannot really understand that we are there for them. And I, th- I, I think that's a good way to start.
And then at a policy level, are there any policy recommendations that we can tease out a little bit from the volume?
Yeah, so your question again is at a policy level, are there any policy-based recommendations that we can tease out a little bit from the volume? I'd say yes. The very first thing is for us to always try to do a benchmark. There's a chapter here by Miss Huffman where she uh, sort of compares the different global north understandings of uh, academic citizenship, and now suggests how that can be integrated into policies for higher education. And I think that's a good piece for one to pay attention to in this particular book. And again, on the level of policy for higher education, I think we should also pay attention to the chapter by Professor Evelyn Derera and her colleagues, where they pose the question, do ranks matter? So why we chase ranks, I think one of the policy recommendations will be why we chase ranks. We should understand that those who have different indices. Some would rank someone at university quite high on the basis of how much research output or how much international presence they have. But how about we trying to look inwards and asking ourselves, are programs reflecting the needs of society? So a political recommendation or a policy recommendation should be to have universities and colleges come up with programs that support the socioeconomic development of the communities that they should identify as theirs, they can empower.
Thank you very much on that very thought-provoking conclusion, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Nkoala. It's important that we do these kinds of things, and I'm really impressed by the questions, well articulated, and that has helped to talk about this book. And I'm also thankful that you could make the time to to hang out with me and talk about this book. Thank you very much. But more importantly, I'd like to also thank Mr. Yul Iwu, who has utilized me as his guinea pig. He has as his guinea pig. He has recently graduated from a bachelor program in motion design. So doing this sort of thing is one way for him to advance in the field. I'd like you to reach out to him if you have to, or even just hang out with him to get some ideas on how you can do this sort of recording. His details will be left after now and it's uploaded. And by the way, he's going to be managing this the uploading and the editing. Yeah, I'm sure Prof. Nkoala would agree that he's done a fantastic job of recording this from virtually every other angle. So thanks to both of you, Sisanda and Yo.